Today we are here in Milan, and we have the pleasure and the honor to interview the people behind the scenes of the Coldplay tour. You know that I'm living in Italy, and I couldn't miss the opportunity to meet Dominic, for example, and later on we will meet other people. And step by step, we want to, come up with the questions that everyone would have, in my place. So first of all, we know that Direct Out, since a while, gave up with the idea of selling products, because we think that you guys have requirements and needs which go beyond the one product. Yep. So can you tell us a little bit, before talking about specifically to the Prodigy and how you deployed it, which are the needs, the desire, the challenges that a guy like you has to face every day in tour?
I'd say probably, reliability is something that you always kind of look for in no matter what you're buying or using, because you want to know that whatever you come into in the morning, the next morning, 2 weeks along, 2 days ago, on an easy day, on a bad day, you want to make sure that whatever you've got, you trust to work. So if it's telling you something or you're using it for some information or some routing or just whatever, you want to know that you can trust that device with what it's telling you or what it seems to be telling you. So if you have any reason to question what it's telling you, you're going to not have full faith when somebody else comes to you and says, is that working? Is your bit working? So reliability, I'd say, is, for me, put very high on the list. You want to, have confidence in what you're using, seeing that the way that it does what it needs to do efficiently, effectively, and without a bug, or without some unreliable, a little flicker or a little drop or whatever it might be. It makes you start to doubt things. And if it starts to do things like that, you can be like, well, okay, I'm not.
So in other words, let me see if I get it right. It's not just what you have designed, because that is predictable, right?
Yes.
It's what if something goes not exactly in the right direction?
Yeah.
The amount of tools that I can have in order to have a complete reaction and immediate reaction to get the system keep going on, whatever.
When say, for example, you trust and know a piece of software and something is different on a day, can I explain why? Can I look at what I'm looking at and be like, oh, this is because of this. Okay, fine. Or if it does it and you go, why has that done that? And there's no explanation, doubt can start to creep in about the reliability of what you're using. And if you're doing, essentially what we want to try and do is achieve the same every day, wherever you are, despite the struggles and the difficulties and, not getting power, not having a truck, whatever it might be that might restrict your time frame to do your regular processes. Can I get in and know, well, I know that when I turn this on, this will light up, that will work. I know that because I've used it enough now. And if I have 4 hours to do it, or if I have 40 minutes to do it, when I turn it on, it will do this. So then when it doesn't do that, you can go, right, well, something else has changed. I know now there's something else that is not this, that is now different. What is it? And so let me investigate.
You are confirming that it's not just the device itself, but also the interaction, the GUI that you have to deal with in order to have the complete situation under control and know exactly what's going on and having the possibility to take some decision and put in actions.
Consistency with what you see every day. If you are methodical in what you do every day and know the process you go through, if you can rely on what you're checking, you can go, okay, I know when I do this, this should do this. And it has done it for the last 30 shows. If it's done it for the last 30 shows, you haven't changed anything, it hasn't changed anything, and everything has been good. When you get to show 31 and something is different, your head, not always, but you can generally go, I know it's not that.
Yep.
And if something is reliably doing the same thing every day, you want to use it more because it builds part of your routine and your comfort.
So your description confirms what I always, thought, that in your role, you are not looking for a product, but you are looking for the complete solution of the portion of the signal flow that is under your control. Can you tell us where your responsibility starts and when your personal responsibility ends?
So on this, I work very closely with Tony Smith, the system engineer, system designer, and together he would do the system design and cover the venue and then hands it over to me essentially. And so this is where we use the D&B GSL, KSL, SL series system in array calc. The design, he hands the design over to me. I then take the design and turn it into something that will work for the venue. Now, my responsibilities lie from the signal path outwards. So you have an input side and output side. I am kind of output solely. The inputs to me are the 4 mixing consoles, or how many mixing consoles in the front of house tent that need to be heard by the public.
And you are collecting them individually? And
yes, so I have 4 different desk inputs. Well, 3 different desk inputs. I had a 4th when we thought we needed like a playback and monitoring SD11 desk, but because of the Prodigy, we didn't need it. We'll get onto that, I'm sure. Yeah. But we basically, I take the 3 support band desks. I have a Voice of God mic that is a direct input to me. I have my playback inputs from my computer. I have, as you all know, a million different options of the million different inputs into the system. I then distribute, route, and control all of those signals throughout the entire PA system to the audience. And again, as the base responsibility of my position is that the sound that is heard here is the same that is heard everywhere, obviously.
And the challenge, I guess, is even bigger in such a gigantic tour organization, because a big chunk of the PA system travels with you, but you always have to deal with something which is already pre-installed for big delays and stuff like that.
Absolutely, very often. I mean, this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
So normally we would cover the stadium with our system. Some stadiums are too big to do that. This is a case in point. And there is an installed ring delay system here. So what we then do is my responsibility is to plug into and make sure that system works to how we want it to. And we arrange with whoever it is to make that work correctly. So in the UK and other venues, we had our own ring delay system where we bring extra speakers in to cover a higher ring when the stadium allows it. Obviously, not every stadium allows it. So like in the United States, most of them don't have covered roofs, so you can't fly ring delay speakers. So you rely on your system to do it and work it harder. But when you can, obviously, a distributed system is better, less reflections, more control. And so the flexibility then of being able to do it different ways is massive. The best example being when we were in Lima in Peru, we brought our main system, so the flown system, but then the entire rest of the system was a locally provided Maya sound system. Now, of course, obviously, I can't control that. I don't have that. So all I do is feed them the signal for the system. They then controlled it. And that meant I had to come up with another way of routing system control and system processing and system routing. And so it came out a different way. And that was, I would say, the next thing of what you asked as the previous question is reliability being the first one for me. Second of all, being flexibility. Because when that reliability changes on that one day when you get to somewhere else and it turns into, we have to do this today. If you have something that is, it's amazing at doing this, but you can't do that, all of a sudden it's usability.
So let's say that the Prodigy MP helped you to change the typical question. Having a different reply for the typical question, can you do that last minute? And probably before the Prodigy MP, the answer would have been, I'm sorry, I can. Now, with the Prodigy MP, the probability is, why not? And then maybe the solution is just one click away.
Well, arguably, it's actually, how would you like to do it?
Exactly. Wow, that's a good one. Wow, not just yes, we can, but how we would like to do. Wow,
exactly.
That's luxury.
We can do it this way or that way. You're right. That is a considerably different change to the question used to be. It would be like, maybe we could do this, maybe, or we could provide this, maybe. But I actually often end up.
So if I well remember, not only a Prodigy MP is in your rig here, but there are other Prodigy's MPs in the entire structure.
Yes.
Am I right?
So Tony has a Prodigy MP in his system, and that is he's using it as his grab EQ, system EQ, for his inputs. Obviously, so then during the gig, if he's there with Dan mixing and Jan's, this touch of this is annoying me, blah, blah, rather than take it out of me and the system distribution, Tony takes it over there. Obviously, if there's any more individual distributed EQ we needed, we generally do that on mine because I have control over the individual elements. But yeah, Tony does that on his. And then he also has a Prodigy MC, which is being used for kind of
more IOs.
the outboard conversion to MADI to put it on the loop, that sort of thing.
Okay, coming back to your Prodigy MP, and let's dive into some more details. I wonder, among the several sync options that you have, which has been the final choice for you, or which is the default choice if everything goes in the right direction?
If everything goes in the right direction, we are clocking internally from the Prodigy. We talked about a few different options, and originally we did start to clock off the AES inputs from Tony. Our thought process was, it's the Coldplay show. You want to keep everything linear from Coldplay's inputs. However, we discovered an issue somewhere in that there was something wrong with Coldplay's input source. And what we then did, obviously, is every other desk was SRC'd to that clock source. We had an issue somewhere where something went wrong with their system just while we were walking in. And obviously that sent the clock source funny. And the other console was kicked off as a result. So with that decision, we decided that actually it's safer and more reliable to have this as the PA clock master, that as their clock master. As you told us at the time, the SRCs in the Prodigy are the newest, second to none, kind of going to be as good as they're going to be.
Yeah, especially the one on the AES input.
Exactly,
yes.
on the AES. So it made more sense to have us be not an island, as it were, but, individual, so that we have more control, more flexibility, and isolation. Say the world is ending on another console somewhere else, you can actually be safe in the knowledge that it isn't going to affect anything else and any other audio coming out.
I agree.
System.
I mean, in the end, you have to look at the big picture, and so it would be much more noticeable a click because the clock is changing during the show, rather than something which is absolutely not audible in terms of quality degradation. Supposed to be quality degradation because of high quality SRC.
No, exactly. So
great.
So that was the decision we made. So then, I mean, at the start of this year, we also had another conversation. We obviously Tony's system is clocked to a word clock. So what we then considered was actually we could run an external input from the same word clock to me and have both of us be clocked to the same word clock, and then arguably we're synchronous again and using the same clock source. What we then discussed was are we adding an element that we don't need to add from a situation that has
But the good thing is, as you said before, how you want to do it, because you could have done that without running any risk, because in the word clock priority, you could have had a second choice as a backup, and then it would have been flawless.
We have the option for that input currently. It's been tested. It works. We know it's all fine. So again, it's there. The potential is there. But again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And the next question is, of course, once we know that it's an internal generation in terms of clocking, which does make sense, because in a certain way, the Prodigy, from your perspective, is a kind of a hub, a central hub, getting all the inputs and feeding all the outputs. So it does make sense that it can be
absolutely. And from our position, it is the hub, like you say, the hub, the center of the PA system. We've clocked the optical from it. From BNC, word clock output, and as a result, so now we know the system is synchronous.
Although people are sometimes confusing word clock with the sample rate, is which was the choice of the sample rate? Since again, the Prodigy gives you a very wide spectrum of choices from 44.1 all the way to 192K. But I guess your decision has been mainly driven by the sample rate, which was natively run into the PA system.
Exactly
right?
That. It was what we wanted to be linear again, because of the idea of being as linear and as close as possible. We went with what Coldplay clock at, and their clock at 96. So it's just
perfect.
It's simple to follow that. Again, I've explained. A few people have been interested and come to ask us. I've explained about the potential for 3 desks all at different sample rates with other sources at different sample rates and coming in.
Well, at that point, it's a completely different world.
Exactly,
the inputs are completely isolated, and when you go through the Prodigy, it doesn't matter which is the format, the sample rate, the clocking. You could think about the good old analog days when connecting input and output, because when you took your decision, then you are free to
whatever you want, plug it in, it'll work. And then obviously then the kind of options of the output, clocking output, different sources to clock from if you need to. If you have a system that needs to run at 48, you can still run at 96.
I wonder if, I guess that from time to time you have to feed some broadcasters for some...
Yeah, exactly that potential, yeah, exactly. I mean, I was actually reminiscing the other day when somebody came up and asked us to change the sample rate of the entire show to match them, and the answer, of course, was go away. Not quite as politely, but, but obviously, actually you could, in theory, provide them with that option,
whatever they want.
Exactly. I mean, I think you'd still say no.
Well, I don't think that we need to go too much deep inside about the technical things. I mean, I have a kind of privilege to have helped you during the tuning. And we tuned some ideas on the go. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah,
we
yeah,
started
yeah.
from one idea and say, why we don't do
Yeah,
that?
what
And
about
then
this? How about this? Yeah.
maybe I do not know if you did that, but I guess that during the first dates of the tour, you improved further according to your needs and requirement. So I think that the most important question for me now is which portions of the audio solutions offered by the Prodigy MP you ended up really using for this, knowing that you as a professional the next day could be in the position to completely change the idea of using the Prodigy MP if the job is a different job, right? Once you know which are the ingredients that you can play with, then the cake can be a different cake every day.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the potential span of when you set up in the first place of what you need in where, and like you said to me on the first time, is having a very clear image in your head. Where are you going to? What do you need? Where it's going to go? And build that plan of input to manager, to matrix, to flex, blah, blah, blah. Because what it means is I now know that where everything is and getting to it to a next point is, like you say, your base file, your ingredients are all there, and which direction you want to then go into is now simpler as a result of having it in the right place. That being said, it's not difficult to change the original ingredients. It's not difficult to load a different file and be like, okay, I'm going to do it like this, and change and route it a different way. So I think, excuse me, I think the DSP and the Flex channel kind of organization has been hugely beneficial for laying out what's where and knowing that, right, even in a minute, again, when you feel like, oh, how does that get to there again? Just having that very clear input to output stage, matrixing, routing, it makes it a lot simpler to know, right, okay, this bit goes to there, I know what goes into this, and looking at the matrices, kind of figuring out again, because obviously the things that change is a band may come out and say, I only want to give you left, right, I only want to give you left, right, sub. That has been so easy just to go, fine, I know where I'm going.
You know what, Dom, thinking about what you said as a first thing, I guess you really enjoy the fact that you can really monitor also with your ears
yes.
at any point if you have a problem.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Looking at 1 meter can be helpful, but listening to what is...
exactly. Being able to listen to and prove to somebody else, be like, look, I'm listening. I mean, we've had it before where, I can't remember where we were. There was someone at one of the support bands, we were trying to go on stage and the stage manager's like, go, go, go. And I can see and I'm able to monitor. It's like, no, there is 0 dB pick noise coming out of this desk. I'm not unmuting you at the minute. And he's like, no, it's not. I confidently,
I can see it,
I can hear it. So it's, yes, it's, again, that's the reliability phases. I know, if I had any doubt in it, when I turn around and say to him it's happening and he says, no, it's not, you may go back and look again.
You know why those interviews are important for us manufacturers? Because you have a slightly different concept of reliability. From your point of view, reliability is a different thing that we always thought. Reliability for us is a product which can be run for 24 hours, 7 days a week or something like that. Reliability, I don't want to say that you're wrong. From your perspective, the reliability means what I have the suspect about, I can double check and know exactly what it is.
That, yeah.
So it's a kind of a different view in terms of reliability. It's extremely interesting.
Reliability for me is me saying something and not having to go back and double check I've said it and have someone ask me, are you sure? Really? There have been times where somebody has said, I'm sending you pink noise. And I said, no.
At that point, Dom, tell me if I get it right. The edge between the hardware and the GUI is negligible at that point because
absolutely,
because what you get as a feedback is the overall experience.
Yes, well, it means that I trust that what the GUI is telling me is what is going on in the Prodigy, and if it tells me that if he tells me he's sending me pink noise, I don't see pink noise. I don't look at the Prodigy first or Globcon first. That is the key thing I mean about reliability. I will immediately go to a cable fault, a desk fault, something else. From my position, as confident as he is in his desk and his routing, and he will turn around and say it's not my file or my desk, and he'll go to a cable. I will do the same thing the other way.
So for you, reliability is how reliable is the information I can get from my system. Fantastic.
What can I see and what do I know and what do I trust? Because of consistency and that coming in the same day, every day, powering it up, knowing that when I flick this will happen. For example, certain things have happened with the input manager. The reliability of the input manager I trust implicitly to the point where it often falls back when I don't think it should because it is that sensitive to an issue or a discrepancy that it thinks And so when people send me pink noise and they turn the pink noise off, there's clearly a discrepancy between the muting of the digital and the analog. It sees it and boom.
Yeah, we have to explain for our watchers what an input manager is. It's basically is a guy which is having more than one hardware input and picking up the one by priority that you decided, which is the one that should go out.
Exactly.
In order to have an input failover on a per channel basis. Yeah,
but it's. I know that when testing signal from desks that are not being routed from a system processor, putting AES clock out or whatever, I know I will fall back to analog and I have to do the process and then resend it back to the AES.
Which is, by the way, also a double check, because when they do that, you can also double check that the input manager are still doing what they are supposed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So input managers, how many different audio formats usually you have to deal with?
So very simply for me, input-wise, it's literally AES and analog only. We're not doing anything else. Of course, I could. With someone to turn up with Dante, I could. And again, setting that up is momentary.
Basically, if you are not using Dante for your rig, it's very rare that you have a guest or something like that.
Very rare. I mean, it would be generally would be a predetermined choice of the tour in the first place. We're using Dante, and that would be your primary.
Maybe the day
input.
that we can feed the PA with a networking system, we might think about that.
Yes.
But for the time being, it's just an AES feed to the optocore, and then the optocore is distributing to the long distances, still delivering AES 3.
Yes, AES out of the Prodigy into the optocore.
To the DMB amplifiers.
Yeah, exactly that.
Right.
And it's just converted back to AES and analog.
And if everything goes in the right direction, you stay synchronous all the way through. I mean, the Prodigy, the optocore, and the DMB amplifiers.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting. I did a job at the start of the year where we did exactly that. The system distribution was output on Dante, input on AES. So via Dante cards, I think I had 45 different system outputs. But yeah, exactly that. Dante priority.
Well, that's let's say that the third dimension of flexibility, that when you really have to change something, you can switch off the device, change some modules, power it up again, and then you have a completely different setup.
Yeah, you have a limitation within your digital stuff, but then
if that should happen during the tour, it's not a good sign. So it means that something went really wrong.
I mean, some planning somewhere was off by a little bit.
Well, I think that the overview has been more than enough, and I guess you are using groups to have a logical, management of a bunch of inputs and outputs.
One-click on and off sort of thing. One-click control of level routing if we need to. Exactly that. Just for each band.
Do you have a bunch of snapshots to manage?
No, so I found that actually I haven't used snapshots.
Not even for panic situation, because
nope. No,
everything is under control. There's no panic.
There's no panic.
All right.
And if there is panic, I'd want to make sure that I know that my physical clicks are physical clicks that I see and follow.
You see,
I talked to Alex about it and talked to about building snapshots for firing in different support bands, different matrix positions. But to be honest, again, I like, as part of the reliability, I like following a mouse click, seeing myself do it, and knowing I know the snapshots could do it. I trust them to do it.
So few notes and few comments about the GUI, which is in the end the key that is allowing you to start the engine. Am I right? Or to control the engine. So I guess that I can see that you are making use of a lot of floating objects and customize your different layouts in order to get in one click wherever you have to go, like this.
Yeah, exactly. So I started out with this quite elaborate one, as you can see. But obviously, if I had 10 screens, then this would be perfect. Unfortunately, I don't have 10 screens.
Yeah.
So I built one for a double screen if I ever needed to do slightly more per thing, and I have one for each band essentially. So I built this one for Coldplay, and I built another one for the supports. I have both support desks in here and my all input-output routing and fallback manager and monitoring. But then obviously, I built smaller ones for one screen to have all the necessary information on there. Same thing.
So again, it's important that you can tailor the audio solution around your needs of today, and not the job that you have in 2 weeks or yesterday.
Yeah. And again, changing it, say something did come in 2 weeks, is not a big enough job that I couldn't do it, save it, preempt it, come into it, whatever, or do it in 10 minutes. It's not big enough.
I would like to make use of your experience to discuss about something which I usually are, inquired and somehow challenged. People say, "Oh, Luca, you design an incredible product, but it's way too complicated." And I'm struggling saying that, well, if we have to go to the bar to have a drink, we can go there with the bicycle, right? But if we have the same appointment to the moon, I feel that one of us should be able to.
You might struggle.
to pilot a space shuttle or something like that. So I don't want to say that I designed the space shuttle of the PA systems. No, I need to stay calm. But it's clear. It's clear that what you said at the beginning, reliability, from your perspective of reliability, flexibility, cannot be achieved with one device, which is only have one button on and off.
No.
Right? So we wanted to offer an incredible amount of tools, an incredible amount of features. But the message that I would like to be confirmed by Dominic, that although, of course, now he's an expert, by the way, you should have worn the T-shirt with the experts on. But anyway, I forgive you about that. Now that he's an expert, it's clear that it's easy to say, it's easy to be used. But it's clear that if you really want to achieve the best out of such a powerful device, you need to learn a little bit about the workflow, about the ingredients that you have there. But once you get there, I wonder how can you think about the show without that? So, I mean, once you know that you can have something like that, then it's going to be like me that I still have 9 and 9 fingers, but I always miss this little thing,
I think I would feel like if I remember saying to you and saying to the guys at the start of this tour, my concerns were I'm happy to do things. I don't want to go out the door without feeling like I know it well enough so that when somebody says, why did that happen? I can't give them a confident enough answer to say, it's because of this or it's because of this. And the way to get to that position was to have the right people tell me why it does it or how it does it. And I think if you expect to know how to use what we are talking about in the real world of events nowadays with incredibly complicated networking systems, conversion systems, distribution systems, if you don't understand the principles, the base levels of how these things work,
you shouldn't go to the moon.
You shouldn't exactly. You shouldn't try and ride a bike to the moon. I feel it's your understanding and knowledge of clocking and system distribution and sample rate conversion and so on and so forth needs to be there. Of course it does, but it needs to be there to use any equipment. You wouldn't try and run into a system to do a show the size of any size without knowing entirely, well, maybe not entirely, at least a base level knowledge of why and how the thing you're using does the things that it does. Personally, that's how I feel. And so I feel like you're right. The prep and setup is everything we do. If you can prep and set up everything in the warehouse before you leave and never have to change anything, you've come up with the perfect tour and the perfect touring system.
In that direction, that I called you a couple of weeks ago because I had in mind something to improve the situation and to please people which are, I can understand, scared a little bit about the complexity of the Prodigy MP. And we are working very hard. And it's just much more on the GUI thing. Remember that you had to come up with the idea of having your workflow or something, but you confirm that every day you don't have to start from the scratch. You just fire the file if needed, and then you can start from where you are. Yeah. So what we are working on in order to please and to try to understand the people which are, I think that the problem is that so far all the other processors they had to deal with were so simple that intrinsically they were easy to use, because they didn't give you any choice. So you were not free to design whatever you wanted, but you had to design around the possibility of the. Now that you have the freedom, well, you are scared about the freedom. So
it's just intimidating, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's try to find a good compromise and let someone like you give you the possibility to prepare the workflow. 99% of things done. You just have to label things and decide which are the actual physical input that you want to use, the physical output. So by means of templates that we are working on, we will be able to please a lot of people and find the same easy to use workflow concept of other processor, but knowing that it's just one template. Then you can have a different template for other things.
There's the level behind it, should you want to go to adult mode.
So thank you very much for your time, Dom.
A pleasure.
It's now the time to interview your mates. Yeah. But before leaving, the most important question for the day of tomorrow. German's beer and Italian beers are enough, or we should buy some British or other things? Because, that's the most important question for today.
As the question was asked earlier, are they cold? If they're cold, then cold. That's all that matters. Hot day, cold beer. Thank you.